Hey, have I got an AI agent for you? You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Techstrong, gang. Man, if you've got an AI agent, I got someone who wants to buy it. What a time to be in the AI agent broker business. A lot going on around that. Of course, a lot going on in the world in general. Our stock market is in correction territory. A lot of uncertainty and fear and loathing, and a lot more than that. But we're going to bring it to you all here on Techstrong, gang. Let me introduce you to our gang for this fine Wednesday. He is out at sea where he's a laptop short, but still able to join us through some premier hacking. He's our security expert, Chris Blask. Hey, Chris, how are you, man?
I am good. Good to be here with you, Alan, and everybody else. I'm in near Summerlin Key today, so we can look that up on your Google Maps and follow the bouncing ball.
Where is Chris? Moving from Summerlin Key to West Texas, a newly hot data center territory, as evidence on yesterday's gang show. She's our managing editor, Amanda Rosani. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
Hello, good. Happy to be here as always.
Good to see you. Sharp, too, not fuzzy at all. Looking very sharp, Amanda. Moving up from Texas, we'll head over to Colorado, where we're not sure he could see himself, but he could see us. He is a DevOps expert, pretty renowned analyst, and just all around great guy from down under, living in Colorado, expat in Colorado. Andi Mann. Hey, Andy, how are you?
Alan, I am doing fabulously well, mate. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. And then last but certainly not least, the dean in Harrison, our chief content officer, Mike Vizard. Mike, no Cole for the year. I don't mean Cole. I mean Jared Cole.
I'm aware. Tommy John. And I think we have to pay him, and then he becomes a free agent. So it's insult to injury, right?
No, I think we have one more year after that. But I read that the Yankees have a tremendous insurance policy on them. And this, not that we care about the Steinbrenner's wallet, but yes.
Now, I think I'm going to go in the AI agent insurance business. That sounds like a great idea.
I just wish I had some more AI agents to sell, which leads us kind of to our first story. Mike, why don't you take it away?
All right. Well, AI agents continue to be all the rage. ServiceNow this week picked up a company for $2.85 billion, which sounds like a lot of money, but I think that's chump change in the AI era. But this company, Moveworks, helps you orchestrate your agents. So, ServiceNow is maintaining its classic position here where it's helping orchestrate workflows, and now we'll extend that to AI agents. Meanwhile, though, the Chinese are out there saying that they've created an AI agent that is much less expensive, perhaps not as smart as some of the AI agents that are out there, but certainly not as costly to implement. And then there's a report from SnapLogic talking about how large enterprises are all in on AI agents and are going to invest about $1 million on average over the next 12 months to build these things out. And it seems like there's a bit of a frenzy going on here, Andy. So what's your take on all this?
Well, I'm loving this for these businesses, by the way. The Movework was really Moveworks. You got to watch out which URL you Google there. You might end up in workforce automation. It's not that one. It's agentic AI for CRM. This makes a whole lot of sense. For 20 or 30 years, we've been trying to automate some of the simpler stuff within the customer service CRM, ITSM kind of space, right? Things like password resets or provisioning or anything like that. And automation is good, but intelligent automation is going to be even better. And so for ServiceNow, I certainly see this as a really positive opportunity to drive that level of automation further. They've got a lot of orchestration already built in. This is going to work out really well, I suspect. Look, it's going to cause a little bit of concern, I suspect, for some of its prior customers who it may now compete with. Let's see what happens to, for example, Microsoft, for example, using that software. The valuation's pretty crazy, but I think you're right, Mike. It is. It's just it used to be $1 billion was the entry fee to cloud. I think $2 billion might be the entry fee to AI. Their last valuation was about $2 billion in June, I think 21 was their last funding round. So that's a big number. So we'll see whether there's actual ROI, but I love this because it's a good use case that's aligned to what they're already doing, that gets them into a market they desperately need to start dominating. I'm excited to see how this all plays out.
I would say their valuation in 2021 had nothing to do with AI. Not. I sounded like I was on the streets in New York again. Nothing to do with AI agents, right? So
Yeah.
is that 850 million is 80.85 billion? Is that the value of the agent over and above that 2 billion mark that they got in 2021? I don't know, but it is a big fat number. And I suspect it's not all based upon agentic AI.
Amanda, I'd love to get your opinion on this, because buried in that SnapLogic report that I mentioned was a question about whether or not the senior IT folks who were surveyed trusted AI agents as much or more than people. And when you added it all up, about 40% or so said they as much, and 44% more said more. They don't trust the people to execute these things. What's your emotionally, intellectually, how does that kind of grab you?
Yeah, so this remains an issue. Yeah, we're seeing more and more trust in AI and AI adoption. So I think the goal, and I've had conversations with people, like right now we're talking about, AI agents like it's a thing. But I think the goal is in the future, that's just going to be something that's integrated across everything. It's just going to be expected. It's just going to be there being used by everyone, just like other technology in the past.
Mhm. I feel though, Chris, I don't know your thoughts here, but I feel like we still have to supervise these things, and there's going to be a tendency to maybe trust them too much. And we are going to have to supervise these AI agents much like any other employee, as far as I can tell.
Right. Yeah. The risk, as always, in outsourcing any security function is that you're not doing it. Right. So, yeah, pondering that, trusting more or as much. And I think it's probably justifiable, right? Because we know how humans are, and this is a machine. If it's wrong, it's probably predictably wrong. But, we have to have the human in the process. Otherwise, the agents don't know what to do. I mean, the risk of corruption, of corrupted use, needs to be on all our minds, because the benefits are, again, just so large from a security perspective. And I like that we're actually talking AI agents. It's not Skynet. This is not the AI out there. We're all using this technology, embedding in things. What does that mean? Right? A lot of good work we can do with security, but to your point, if we just start trusting and walking away, that can't work out well.
All right. So Andy, let me walk you through this concept a little bit here. So we have all these AI agents. They clearly need to be observed. They need to be tested. They need to be governed. Are we essentially about to create agentic AI ops here?
Oh, from your word mouth to God's lips, I reckon, God's ear, isn't it, Mike? Well, probably, because the next step is obviously we need AI managers to supervise the AI agents. Look, I actually think that over time, this gets a lot easier. We've seen this before with automation, virtualization, and cloud, right? We've seen it with DevOps and straight through process. We've seen it with things like RPA. Yeah, trust but verify, right? And absolutely, Chris, we've got to have governance, compliance, risk management. These things can go haywire and cause immense expense and trauma in a very short amount of time. But this was always true of automation and orchestration as well. And so I just think we get to the point where we have to click that button that says, don't ask me anymore. And that's the point where we're going to get to. And that's when the agentic AI ops manager will take over. I think you're absolutely right, Mike. Agentic AI ops It's an extension of where we've been with AI and ML and advanced analytics and automation and orchestration. This all comes together and makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
Do
Alan,
we
how
think
do
though?
go ahead.
Eventually it is going to be so ingrained that it's going to just become more of a standard cybersecurity roll-in issue, and maybe to Mike's point, we'll just have insurance covering any issues, anything that goes wrong. We'll have a whole insurance industry for it.
In short,
That's
yes, right. This
yeah.
is as you go back to that trust thing. We know right now, if you really want to get into cybersecurity, you can get red teams and blue teams and green teams. You can do a lot of work, and you can learn a lot of things. You can advance a lot, right? But we always know, that there could be missing things, right? You get a vulnerability test, you'll find a certain amount and some left. So just the sheer power of building this in. And to your point, insurance, yeah, when insurance can get predictable, the insurance market has for centuries and will continue to exist. Cyber risk remains, a difficult to quantify risk. This may, through sheer empirical power, provide some of the basis for predictable insurance risk for the remainders.
We've talked about this in the past, but I still don't understand how I'm going to manage all these agents. And if every app has an agent, and I've seen some agents out or apps out there that have 6 or 7 agents that they're popping up in my screen. And so, do I need like a super agent at some point to rein in all these different agents? Is that how that's going to play out? Alan, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, it sounds like a job for Kubernetes. The ultimate orchestrator.
I mean, I do think you will need a management tool, though, a system, though. This is true. When you started with automation, we started with scripting, right? So we had a library of scripts. Then we have script managers. Then we had a library of virtual code managers, right? Then we put it together and we started to do orchestration. Then we started to do version control on our orchestration routines. This is where we're going. It makes sense. It's not going to happen straight away because we're in the middle of the revolution. We're excited. Everything is just a $2 billion entry fee. We're going to get there, but we absolutely going to need some kind of orchestration manager, automation manager, AI manager, agentic manager. We absolutely will. And I would just point out that in terms of the risk, this is like another employee now. This is not just a tool. This is doing work. And if our biggest risk is insider threat, which I believe it continues to be, why wouldn't agents be that risk? They're going to definitely need automated management.
So I have a theory. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, Mike,
raised-
the short answer is yes. And it's, when you say I mean you, Mike. I think, the risk to you is not the same as the risk to you performing your job. The risk to you is you perform your job wrong and you don't have a job, right? So I think we all end up with that personal manager. Arthur C. Clarke's last book, the main character has a AI manager, right? And I think we get that. That reminds us, me, Chris, the person, to when I go to work, make sure I have, to Andy, to your point, that governance layer to do my job, so that my real manager, my real AI, my personal AI, keeps getting its monthly subscription paid, and I live indoors.
So I have a theory on this. We're really early in this AI agent, and everybody's rushing to market because they want to have their own AI agent. Every app has to have their own AI agent. Everybody wants to have an agent. And we all know that that is not practical. I think where we're going to, and most of these agents, by the way, are relatively one-trick ponies. They do one thing, right? They do one thing. They schedule this, they find that, they check a box. Those agents are going to become ephemeral, right? Because they don't need to be running necessarily all the time. It's just when you're going to do something. I think where we're going to go to is we are going to have, Chris, you want to use the Arthur Clarke analogy, an AI agent manager, an AI that manages our agents, and that manager spins up ephemeral instances of different, let's call them sub-agents, that do a particular job and then dissolve back into the woodwork. right? And that master agent, if you will, is smart enough to know when to spin up these alter egos that do a particular thing so that we don't need to have 2 dozen different someone like and all of us are power users on computers, we work in tech, right? We don't need 2 dozen different agents for the I mean, how many apps do you have on your phone? If you're like me, you have probably 100 apps on your phone. So you need 100 agents on your phone? No. How often do you use those apps? So we're gonna have a master agent that spins up ephemeral sub-agents, disposable agents, one-time use agents, Harry Shavers, whatever you wanna call them, and they do the job and they go back and they go away, and the next time you need it, it spins it up again. That's probably a Gen 2 or Gen 3 thing. Right now, we're in the "I can't get enough agents" mode, but that's gonna quickly pass too, right? As we're overwhelmed with too many agents.
All the marketing people are going to object to the word master, but I get your point. One's going to be kind of the senior head butler, maybe, and the other ones are all kind of
Well,
working.
it's one agent to rule them all. But you won't have all of these agents because I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of noise. You won't have all of these agents because not all the tasks that these agents are doing are worthy of a standalone agent. Let's call I don't know if you wanna call them sub-agents, ephemeral agents, disposable agents, I don't care. But you're not gonna need a permanent agent for most of the things that the agents are doing. You spin them up and down.
I want to be clear about like responsibility here. So if the company gives me an agent to perform a task and the agent screws it up, is it my fault or is it the company's fault?
It's still your fault.
Never the company's
It's
fault.
always your fault, Mike. You've been here at Techstrong for how long? It's always your fault. No, seriously. Um, it's the same thing at the cloud. The cloud gives you an instance that you spun up, but when your data gets breached, it's your problem, right? And you know, and then so falling back on my legal background, an agent is an agent, hence the word agent, creating agency. And when you employ an agent, whether it be a digital agent or a people agent, you bear liability for that agent's actions. So, yes, it's your fault.
So, do we think we're going to see more to that point? Do we think we're going to see more upper level leaders getting insurance on themselves in the job? Like, that's going to be something they ask for if they take a CEO position of some big tech company or they're using a lot of AI, they're going to ask for insurance for themselves?
Well, so like boards of directors and officers always already have E&O insurance for the most part, right? Errors and omissions. Um, and that's pretty standard. I don't know if we'll extend EO to include agent or agentic malfeasance or what have you, but or negligence. But I mean, yeah, why not?
So it might be an easier conversation though, because when something does go wrong and it's actually Andy's fault, won't say it's Andy's fault. I'll say Andy's agent screwed up, and therefore, it's less tense conversation, right?
Yeah, it's going to have to happen though, isn't it? I mean, the responsibility for automation has always been with the automator. And you're absolutely right, Alan. You talk about cloud. We think of cloud as someone else's computers, but ultimately you're always responsible for your own actions in the cloud or on premises. And we've seen this before as well. Clouds providers go down, and your general consumer is not angry at Amazon or Azure. They're angry at you for not providing the service you said you would. So look, it doesn't really matter where the agent lives or the responsibility. We're going to have to be responsible for our own actions because we're going to be responsible to our customers who will blame us anyway. So sure, take it on the chin, get ready, get insurance, maybe up your insurance. So I know when we went to cloud, a lot of people did up that E&O insurance, Alan, because of the extended risk. We're going to face more extended risk with AI. Why wouldn't you up your insurance on that if you can? It's because we're going to find breaches. We're going to find insiders, agentic breaches. This is just the start of all sorts of stuff, Alan, not just the management, but also the penetration vectors.
I'm sorry, I can no longer provide you with insurance because you're too much of a risk. So we're just pulling it,
What do you hurricane insurance in Florida again, Mike?
I just got to say, Alan, with your ephemeral agents has me thinking, and I think we probably need to start thinking about agents as a service, which on the one hand, may be an actual thing, and on the other hand, it's an acronym that once you pronounce it, will be fun.
Yes. Well, I don't think we're going to go with that particular acronym, Chris. Something tells me, but we'll see where we go from there. Anyway, hey, we've spent 20 minutes on this one. We got to jump to our next block. Let's take a quick break here on Techstrong Gang. We'll come back with more.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey, folks, we're back and we're moving on to talk about what's going on with Apple, which has indefinitely delayed its upgrades for Siri. And everybody's kind of scratching their head what that means, because maybe Gen AI and Siri are incompatible. Who knows? But Amanda, what's your take on what's going on here?
Yeah, it seems we're hearing about them a lot lately. They seem to be struggling with their AI offerings in general, kind of the last to come in with their AI offerings in the first place. So I wonder, what is their approach? Why is it so different? I know it's going to require more power. According to the article, what they're trying to do with their AI is going to require more power. That's part of the struggle. But either way, they seem to have been struggling to compete in the AI offerings in general. And I wonder if we're going to see this in phone adoption with their new phone, if people are going to be switching to another phone that already has all the cool AI features.
I wonder if this will also be an issue for other people like Samsung, because maybe, to your point, there isn't enough horsepower on the phones to run this stuff locally, so it doesn't work as well as it should, and you can't make everything a call to the cloud. So have we reached some sort of technical impasse here that just needs another generation of processors? Andy, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, look, I think I'm not a consumerist. I'm obviously an enterprise person, but from my perspective, what I see is they don't want to repeat the Apple Maps fiasco, right? They want to get it right. If you remember when they brought out Apple Maps to compete with Google Maps, all of a sudden people were driving off freeways into driving off overpasses and into canals and so forth, right? Apple can't afford to do that now. They've got to have trust. And, Amanda spoke about this earlier on today. Your trust in AI is super important. And so at the consumer level, especially, at the enterprise level, we can try things out and iterate and so forth and so on. At consumer level, we don't have A/B testing. We buy devices and use them. If they're no good, we throw them away and get something else. So I think they've got to get it right. And I think there's a lot of challenges. I think you're really spot on when you talk about the processing power on system. I'm working right now on some things around voice control with local response using an LLM. And it requires pretty significant processing for some very basic command structures. If you want to get real AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, whatever it is, into a phone, you're going to have to do some pretty interesting stuff. So maybe as they continue to develop their chipset, by the way, the M1, M2, these are amazingly fast and powerful chipsets. Doing some of that work on the phone, maybe that's what we're looking for in the next gen.
So, look, I'll remind you all that Siri doesn't just work on iPhone. Siri works on Macintosh, on your MacBook Pros, on your Mac Studios, and there's plenty of horsepower on those machines. So I don't know if it's a horsepower issue. I think the bigger issue, and I'm gonna call the elephant in the room out. The knock on Apple is since Tim Cook came in, they're not innovating. And quite frankly, they've been late to the AI game. Quite frankly, they have been using other people's AI, right? They had to deal with OpenAI because they were using the OpenAI stuff. They've been they out of you look at the Mag 7 and in my mind, the big 4 of that Apple competes with, it's Apple, Meta, Google, Microsoft, or Big 5, Amazon. I think Apple has trailed their competitors there in native AI adoption. And now they're trying to build it into Siri because, look, Siri should have been an AI to begin with. We thought it was, I guess, at the time. And they're stumbling with it. They were late to market, they were late to do it, and they continue to have trouble. I don't blame this on horsepower. I don't This is gonna take some innovation and some new ways of looking at things for Apple, doing different things, maybe out of their box, and they're not doing it well, plain and simple.
And I think it's a pretty interesting point, Alan. The idea that Apple is an innovator has always been, I'm going to get in trouble in a moment now, because I don't think they've been an innovator since was, really. I mean, the iPhone was late to the market. Siri was late to the market. They were already late to the market with AI. Maps was late to the market. They spent a lot of money trying to do self-driving cars and then sold that unit off. I would posit that Apple is not designed as an innovator. Apple is designed as a fast follower and has been super successful in that mode. So that's actually a really interesting idea, Al, and maybe not a bad thing for them.
Yeah, I've been, we've been an Alexa household rather than a Siri household, in this generation. As I mean, I control lights and pumps and water cannons on boats and so forth. And I think you probably, what you're all saying about Apple is probably true enough. But Andy, what you're saying, these devices, what we talk about as AI these days, last segment we're talking about agents, what does it actually take? And whatever the answer is, I think, our experience, I know my experience with these devices over these last, 5, 7 years, whatnot. And our expectations now are that it acts like ChatGPT, and it does not. It's dumb as a stump. And if Google and Apple, with all their resources, can't make these devices, those of us who embedded smart, there's a reason. And then, maybe it's incompetence at some level, but I think we're going to have expected more out of our little local devices than we have. I think we're starting to expect that now, right? We're suddenly in the 640K world. It's like, you remember when we just had the 640K and we thought that was great? Yeah, I think that's the Siri and Alexa sort of infrastructure we have right now. We're going to look back as 8-bit 80s, stuff.
Are you telling me that Apple Intelligence is the latest oxymoron? Is that where we're going with this?
Big corporations and big governments and big organizations. I agree with Andy. It's hard for them to innovate. That's not really their job so much. And they can screw up what remains of their job, and I think they all do that with alacrity as well. But I think this is a more fundamental sort of shift.
Yeah. So Amazon is supposed to be rolling out a big Alexa upgrade, speaking of Alexa, that has a lot more AI. I think it'll be interesting to see if they fumble that one as well, or if that goes a little smoother here than what's going on with Apple.
No, here's what's going to happen is that there'll be a dedicated Apple Watch. It'll be a co-processor for the AI workloads that will sit on your other wrist, and you'll have to buy both of them.
And the chain between them as well, or is that optional? It's like,
and your master agent will control it all. Maybe we need we'll call him Hobbs or something from the Arthur movie. Anyway, all right. Well, I think the Apple AI conundrum, though, is bigger than Siri. And it's funny, as I said this, looking over at my iPhone, I'm getting those pretty, neon lights lighting up when Apple Intelligence kicks in. It hears me talking about it. Hope it doesn't zap me with a laser or something. But, the fact is Apple has to show their chops in AI. If you believe AI is where we're all going and, that's the indispensable element. It's more than AI in Siri, it's AI in Apple. Where is it in the OS? Where is it in their apps? Where is it in everything they're doing? And, Apple Intelligence may not be an oxymoron just yet, but I don't see any, I've been running the betas since they came out with this Apple Intelligence, and I run it on my Mac, I run it on my phone, I run it on my iPads, I run it on my Apple TV and my watch, and I haven't seen a damn thing. So, I don't know. Well, I think, ball's in their court.
And I wonder, Alan, if we're running up against use cases and validation and product market fit for Apple as well, right? They've been running these ads about Apple Intelligence for the longest time. Is no one getting excited at the use cases they're showing? Are they trying to find product market fit? Google's running ads as well for, set up my appointments for me with my friends that go to dinner. We know that doesn't work. So maybe we're looking for product market fit.
Well, but so that's not just an Apple issue though, right? That is so what is the killer app for AI?
Right question. I would, give me funding and I'll find out. Yeah, this is the sort of thing.
Oh, I
which
think right now
get
you just gotta
before
make
making
an
your question.
agent and you can get funding, but what is the killer app for AI? This is something I did a YouTube short on this about a month ago now, where Mark Cuban says that the world's first trillionaire, if you believe that the Saudi family is not already trillionaires and everything else, um, that the world's first trillionaire will not be Jeff Bezos or Elon or Zuckerberg, but it'll be the person who makes the killer app for AI, uses it in a way we haven't quite figured out yet, and they'll make $1 trillion. And, that video, that YouTube short got over 1.2 million views. So people are definitely interested in that. I think they're more interested in trillionaires. Anyway, hey, let's take a break here on Techstrong. We're going to come back and, how's your 401k doing? You're watching Techstrong, gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, folks, we're back for Steve Block, and we're going to talk now about, what's going on Wall Street. And as anybody has seen this week, it's been a bit bumpy, shall we say, at least in the wrong direction for a lot of folks, and who knows if it will recover or not. But, Alan, what's your take on what's going on here? Because it seems like outside of the fact that we had some, sharp downturns this week, the whole trend has been in the wrong direction.
Like, I may never be able to retire at this rate. My 401k is becoming a 202. So it's kind of scary. But here's the thing, right? Market people tell you can't watch it day to day. You got to look at trends. You got to look at, and the traditional rule of thumb is if you have a fall of more than 10%, it's truly a correction. If you have a fall of more than 20%, it's a downright crash. Well, since our glorious leader came into power at the end of January. We're in correction territory. And, this is from the guy who promised us that the eggs are going to go down, your stocks are going to go up, and everything else is going to be willy nilly and happy, happy.
So, Andy, does this kind of cycle perpetuate itself a little bit? Because what happens is companies pull in their horns, then they stop funding new projects, and then it all starts to cascade downwards. And do we need to take a pause here at some point, or how do we? What's your sense of how this might all kind of maybe reverse itself?
Well, I hope it does reverse itself, because I don't know about you guys. My 401k is becoming a 404k, right? It's just investment not found. This is definitely going to have to correct at some point. But look, I don't know that this is fundamental, or certainly not within tech stocks. Yes, there is some fundamental pressure around. There's been layoffs in order to retool for AI. We've seen from so many from the FANGs we talked about earlier, and many, many others, there's been a lot of retooling to gear up, to free up the OPEX for AI investment. And that's not insignificant. We're literally seeing hundreds of thousands of tech workers in Silicon Valley and related industries out of, obviously, New York, Chicago, Boston, etc., coming out in the streets, and that's dropping spending power. It's dropping confidence. And there's a lot of administrative action happening at federal level as well, obviously causing uncertainty. And you talk about administration leaders being comfortable with the word recession. That's sort of a new attitude. So look, is it going to correct? It always does. When will it correct is probably the big thing, and what will drive that correction. I don't think this is fundamental, certainly within tech, but there are some fundamentals that are not helping, certainly in terms of employment and spending power of those tech workers.
Guys, this is not just tech. Let's be clear. This is not just tech. This is the entire market. And here's the reason. I've said this before, I think, on the show, but I'll say it again here. Do you know what the market hates the most? Uncertainty. And do you know what the very definition of a Trump administration is? Chaos. Chaos is uncertainty. And when you have uncertainty, the market, it gets real skittish. So it's not, yes, that we get hurt in tech, and look, the Magnificent Seven and the NASDAQ is such a big part of many of our portfolios for 401k and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, the entire market abhors uncertainty, and you've got an administration that is the very definition of uncertainty, day to day, minute by minute, moment by moment. And if the market doesn't feel secure, this is what happens. And hindsight is usually 2020, but unfortunately in this country, during the last election cycle, people put on rose-colored nostalgic glasses thinking about what the economy was under the first Trump presidency. It sucked. And then COVID really made it suck. And we got out of there with net losses of jobs and everything else. And you could say what you want about Joe Biden and how old he was, but he did what he could to restore it. And it was handed over in a solid inflation back down at 2%, joblessness down low, even the deficits they were trying to do some things with. Let's rip off the rose-colored glasses and call it what it was. This man's a menace. This administration's a menace. And this is what the market is reacting to. And it's a worldwide market. It's not just the US.
Well, let me think through some fundamentals of that, because you're exactly right, Alan. The markets are, as we know, they're emotional. How comfortable do I feel? But there are reasons for that, right? And I just wrote a piece this morning about some changes in ISACs, the Information Sharing Analysis Centers, that since the 90s have been public-private centers to share threat intelligence and protect, the nation in various ways. But in many ways, it's by lowering the cost. Because in this case, the multi-state ISAC, which was congressionally funded, has had its funding pulled, and that most ISACs are the private sector. So you have members who are for-profit companies. They pay some dues, you fund the whole thing. The multi-state ISAC was unique. Past tense now, was unique because it had the state, local, tribal. So if you're the mayor of some small town, you can belong to this, and you can find out that there's, for example, active cyber threats that are attacking infrastructure that you have. So you can plan in advance and save time, money. Yes, be more secure, but also reduce your odds of needing the insurance and the recovery. And if you are your traffic lights suddenly start working, you had somewhere to go to say, hey, is that a thing? And find out, yes, it is a thing. Here's what you do. So again, save time and money in getting your traffic lights working again after being hacked. So we have this combination of uncertainty, as you say, which is a characteristic of the current administration, and actual losses, actual costs introduced into the systems that take money away from other activity.
You know what needs to be called out too, though, is all these folks who are announcing layoffs and then attributing it to AI. There's just no way that the AI is that advanced yet to really justify that level of layoff. So what you're really saying is, yeah, AI has probably had some impact here and there, but we really just screwed up and we're hiding it behind AI. So let's just call it as it is.
I will say, though, I just want to point out that, as Andy mentioned, the market always corrects itself, and eventually we always see an upward line over a period of time. So now I'm not a professional, financial advisor, but I'm saying buy at a low rate.
Well, that there's a theory of you buy on the dips and you buy low and you dollar cost average your stuff. Here's the problem, Amanda. If we were all your age, I'd say, yeah, yippee-yi-yay. But when you look at the demographics of the US, more people are closer to Andy, Mike, Chris, and I. And those people don't have 5 to 10 to 15 years for this correction to correct itself. Okay? And so it's important to them. And yes, when we look at the S&P market over the last, let's say the S&P over the last 80 or 100 years, it averages, 3% a year or 3.5% a year, something like that. We had a great 4 years these past 4 years in the market for the most part. But I don't have 80 years for this to what you're losing now is really gonna hurt people. And then you have the twin concern of how are we gonna pay for our Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, given the current government here. And then, things start getting real ugly real quick. Real ugly, like, take to the streets ugly. Take it to the streets.
And I will say, Amanda, it's a good plan. And Alan, you're right. Buy on the dip. The one thing that I'd point out, and certainly the oligarchs are going to do that, right? The one thing I'd point out is if you're not making the market, you're at the whim of the market. So yeah, you can try and buy on the dip. And if you're going to do that, good on you. You could potentially make out really well. Like you say, Alan, if you've got time to let that fester and grow over time and correct. But you got to pick the right winners. And if you're not making the market, I don't know that I'm going to pick the right winners.
So what I heard Alan say is that the Techstrong gang will be broadcasting for the next 20 years, even if it's from a nursing home. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, what I think I may have to do is just upload my consciousness to an AI, and it'll be out there in perpetuity, earning money, whatever. It's a scary thing. Look, let's be realistic. Some of us have done well, but the majority of Americans, who are invested, I mean, pensions aren't, unless you're a government worker, and there's fewer and fewer of them every day, thanks to Fearless Leader. You don't have a pension. You have, if you're lucky, you have a 401k. If you're lucky, maybe your employer matches your contribution and so forth. And most 401ks, you're not playing individual stocks. You're making broad bets. You're investing in QQQ, right? The Nasdaq index fund. You're investing in an S&P fund. You're investing in a small cap fund, a large cap fund, aggressive, but they're funds. And so you're betting, you're in the zebra herd, right? And your investment goes as well as the herd goes. You're not a maverick, right? And so, as Andy says, if you're not a maker, you're a sheep, and some sheep get slaughtered.
Hey, it's only a matter of time before all those manufacturing jobs come back to the US and we're fully employed again, and consumer sentiment will just skyrocket back up again. Come on.
That's right, Mike. That's right.
I
Yeah.
didn't know we were doing stand-up. Oh, man, I haven't got my tight five, Mike.
That's right. Yep. 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 But look, one thing about the market, it is fickle. It is fickle. Maybe you get some peace deal in the Middle East or the Ukraine and Russia situation. I don't know. China does something. I mean, there are, you never know, right? And that's part of living in chaos.
So if you're sitting in Canada or China and, and then as the president describes it, this is the biggest market and the most coveted market in the world. But if consumer sentiment is down, the market is down, people are spending less, then you have less leverage to negotiate on tariffs, right?
So individually, it's a very big market. My fear is that Europe says, you know what, we don't need this. We'll go do deals with China, Canada, Mexico, Brazil. We don't need this. We'll go do deals with China. It don't take much China plus to it's not even close what's a big market, right? Because one could say China's a bigger market right now anyway, but you do China plus Europe, China plus Canada, Mexico, Europe plus Canada, Mexico, and Brazil, Europe plus India. I mean, it's a global, we're way past, this isn't 1953 and Eisenhower isn't the president where the US dominates the world market anymore. It doesn't. That's not what the world is anymore, right? Everyone in this world wants to live an American lifestyle in terms of being a consumer. And almost every country tries to give their people that consumer lifestyle, right? They don't want to be America per se, but they want that American lifestyle, right? Thomas Friedman in his Flat Earth series writes about this a lot. And, there's a lot of countries in the world that are giving people that American lifestyle plus.
And Alan, I tell you what, from a global perspective, there's a reason I'm here. I listen to my accent. This is my Colorado accent, right? I've come a long way to be here and enjoy that American experience, right? I've sacrificed a lot and hopefully contributed some, but I will tell you, you're exactly right. But Asia especially is no stranger to China. Australia has been trading with China as our most favored nation for the longest time. I believe for a long time, China was actually our biggest export partner, especially around coal, steel, resources. And you look at Asia Pacific generally, and look, this is a game of brinksmanship that could end up very, very poorly, exactly as you say, because I would start in Asia where there are already somewhere like 2.5 billion people. And you talk about markets, India, Indonesia, China, that's like half the world's population right there. And if they align with China, as they already are, there's a lot of sentiment there, which is that China is a positive influence in the region. We don't always look at that from our perspective here in the States. And so there's a game of brinksmanship that could end up very, very poorly. Already China has been pressuring trading partners to not use US dollars. Now, if we start to talk about petrodollars and euro dollars and petro euros or whatever you'd call it, oh, wow, if America stops becoming the reserve currency of the world, then we're in a whole different perspective. Well, I've been tracking Bitcoin the last few days, and look, if you think your portfolio is bad, just track Bitcoin the last week and a half. Oh my goodness, I'm glad I'm not long.
Crazy. Anyway, hey, we've got to call a break. I'm not in the studio, as you could probably tell. I'm up in Orlando at SUSICON, and I've got to go hear what's going on in the world of Linux and AI and cloud native. So I'll be here all week, but I'll be on the gang. I'm going to try to get Mitch is here with me, Mitch Ashley. We're going to try to do a report from SUSICON for gang either tomorrow or Thursday. But until then, Andy, always a pleasure. Chris, great to see you. Smooth sailing, as they say. May the wind be at your back. Amanda, Mike, as always, thank you. Thank you for watching. We've got a full Techstrong TV schedule immediately following, so stay tuned for that. But for now, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong Gang. We're out.